first and foremost, before we get into our topics, I'd like to introduce my co-host or have them introduce themselves.
Well, good morning. Ken Coleman, Detroit based author and historian.
Ellis Liddell, author of Merging Faith with Finance, Wealth Management, Merging Faith with Finance.
Good morning. My name is Darnell McLaurin. I'm a public servant as well as a union delegate.
Merging faith with finance.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, those of us who've managed to get a couple of nickels together, we prayed about it before we got it.
Okay, good idea. Oh, and as our tradition on this day, written by this guy right here.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to do a quickie, and then I'm going to do tomorrow. Today is June 5th.
A quickie?
A quickie read of today, and then I'm going to do tomorrow. Are we starting off like this? Morris Hood, in 1934, Morris Hood Jr. is born. Hood will amass a long and storied career in public service after being elected to the Michigan House of Representatives in 1970. He will found the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus. In 1996, Hood will become the first African American chair of the powerful House Appropriations Committee. He will serve there until his untimely death in 1998. Now, tomorrow, in 1936, on June 6th, Levi Stubbs is born. Stubbs will become lead singer of the legendary Motown vocal group, the Four Tops. The group will score a string of hits in the 1960s and 70s. Baby, I need your loving. I can't help myself. Sugar pie, honey bunch. Reach out and I'll be there. Bernadette. Stillwater. And the funny thing about Bernadette, my boyfriend, he used to sing that. He would put Brenda instead of Bernadette.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But Levi Stubbs also played the plant in Little House of Horrors, the film.
I forgot about that.
Yes,
I saw that movie, at least parts of it, and I totally forgot. I put it in a book, if I remember.
Yeah, maybe in the edited version
There
you
you-
will.
there you go.
You never know. You could ask me. I'm a history buff too. But
I actually have you. I'm gonna do a
his
video
voice
version.
was so distinct.
Oh, yeah.
He had, and I remember they used to play at the state fair, and we would sit on top of people trying to watch them. They were excellent. So Levi Stubbs, God rest his soul. Tomorrow we commemorate his birthday. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in Chicago, this minister, he says the Democrats are failing us. And I've heard that a lot and a lot of people talk about that because many African Americans vote straight Democratic. They won't hear anything else but. Do I have any comments on that?
Let me start. In Mississippi, where Darnell takes his roots and I take my roots, that state votes majority Republican all the time. And they're still waiting
Even
on,
the African Americans?
especially the African Americans.
Really?
And they're still waiting on the promise that Abraham Lincoln made about the 40 acres and the mule. So just to throw that out there are people who are waiting on promises that may never be fulfilled.
I think what you can take from that is the rest of the company or the country is voting Democrat, and as in Mississippi they voting Republican. What does that say? That those parties aren't failing us. We are failing us, and we can't blame political parties. Sure, there are some small things that benefit mankind all across the country. Typically, Republicans don't support abortion, those type of things. But at the end of the day, you got to get up, get out, and get something. It's all on you. So the Democratic Party is not failing us. The Republican Party isn't failing us. We are failing us.
I think those are great points. I guess maybe on the panel, the resident statewide Democratic Party member. I just have found in my life that of the two-party system, I'm more in line politically with the Democratic Party. But having said that, I understand what the pastor's point is, and we often talk about it even as Democrats, as the party sometimes taking us for granted. I think, and we talked a little bit about this last week, I believe you have to work within the process and make it what you want it to be. The party will be what the majority of people want it to be, and one of the challenges that I see oftentimes, and we talk about this in November and in August after elections, why isn't the turnout the way that we want it to be? Now, that could be a byproduct of people being being turned off the process. There's no question about that. But if you don't get in the game, you can't win. And so, while I believe that there ought to be a strong two-party system and maybe even a third or independent party, I don't jump on African Americans for being Republican. I mean, I'd rather you be a Republican like Bill Picard, somebody who buys hundreds of NAACP Freedom Fund tickets. But we are Americans and we ought to be able to vote the way we want. I just don't find that the Republican Party has a program that suits my lifestyle and people that look like me and live where I live.
Absolutely. I was going to say years ago when I was younger, there was a governor here, G. Menon Williams, and people liked him. He was a Republican. Also, William Milliken.
Milliken was a Republican. Soapy was a Democrat.
I mean, yes, right.
But your point about Milliken is a very good one. Milliken and former Mayor Coleman Young got along very well.
Very well.
Certainly got along a lot better than
Engler.
But back in those days, and I know you want to move into some other topics. Back in those days, the Republican Party, and I think Ellis makes this point too, when you're talking about African Americans voting in Mississippi, it was a different brand of Republicans. Back in the day. I mean, now they're just angry and the hatred. I mean, you hear how they talk about President Obama. I mean, Governor Milliken supported some affirmative action programs.
Yes.
Sent money to Detroit at a time when people in other parts of the state didn't want Detroit to get anything. I think he understood that Detroit was the center of Michigan. Maybe not the capital, but to the extent that Detroit does well, Michigan does well.
Ellis?
I was just going to say that I wasn't trying to say what Daryl's Are My Party was Darnell's Are My Party was because we grew up in Mississippi. I was simply making the point that the minister who's bringing in Republicans, he's hoping to make some change, some expectation, and that's a good expectation. However, you do have to have a conversation to get change.
Absolutely.
And that's a good point, because what he said was he invited everybody that was running to come to Old Block per se, and so far the only person that showed up was
Rand Paul.
So what he's looking to accomplish, I agree with, is to open the eyes of the people in the community, and that's a good thing. But to say that the Democratic Party has failed us, I don't typically agree with that. And one of the things I discuss with my friends is the fact that today's Republican, it was not my father's or my grandfather's Republican. And so we have to take those type of things into account and really look at what those parties represent as it pertains to you. Me personally, I don't make enough money to be Republican. It's just that simple. The things that they like to change and the things they like to see, and I believe we talked about this several weeks ago. Atlas Shrugged, the book written by Ayn Rand. So the philosophy of the Republican, especially today, is the billionaire is buying politicians. They wanted to go into a system where it's basically the have and the have-nots, if you read the book and you look at the undertones. And so the Democrats, the basic premise of the Democrat Party to me is, hey, listen, there are some less fortunate individuals. We do need some programs, because if we don't have them, then whatever you have, Republicans, they're going to come and get anyway.
And Republicans got programs too. I mean, they're farm subsidies. There are families in America that vote Republican and certainly have since the Reagan era, and they get government subsidies too. I mean, there are more farmers out here to get subsidies than urban dwellers who don't have enough food and may get food stamps and stuff. So one of the things we have to be careful about is buying into some of this racist logic. Government helps businesses all the time with tax breaks, and so that's a government program too. So we have to be clear about that when we have this conversation.
There's something I heard years ago. I think I was in grad school at the time, about the population and how the population. This has been out years and years ago. The population is going to shift, and it's going to be a majority minority population eventually.
It's already there for the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And I felt, and they were talking about this, I never forget this. They said, white people are going to be more threatened by this, and they're going to use the power that they have to try and bring people, like taking away voting rights, things of that nature, to thwart anything that can happen to help some minorities.
Well, look at the gerrymandering that took place across the country.
And especially in this state too, and a lot of places.
Right.
And one thing I wanted to say real quick is I think that the Michigan Democratic Party, I mean, they seem to have no power because it's a majority Republican legislation. I think I agree. I know I agree with Darnell. I agree with all of you that we have to go on and do what we have to do. I can't sit around and wait for them.
Well, what happens is, and I know you want to get to the other topic, but we've got some callers here. What happens is that, the point about the Michigan Democratic Party not having any power, we've got this phenomenon in Michigan where voters will turn out for a presidential election
And vote against their own interests.
Michigan has elected a Democratic president every election since 1982, or 1988 was the last time a Republican won. But what happens is we take the off election off, and we don't
Right.
vote for in the gubernatorial race. And so we've had, with the exception of two terms of Granholm, we've had Republican governors since 1990. What happens is we only go halfway. We're not going as far as we need to. We stay at home, and the gubernatorial election is a huge election. It is almost as big as the presidential
Right.
term.
Well, for many people living in this state, it's bigger.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Because let's look at the welfare,
Yeah.
this whole testing thing.
Indeed.
The effect that a governor has is huge, not just on the population, but on the economy,
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely. We have a call. Oh, go on. We have a call real quick. We'll take it quick. Good morning.
Yes, I think that the Democratic Party has taken us for granted. I'm voting independent. I voted for Bernie Sanders. We don't have royalty here, and the Democrats and the Republicans vote. I think they are arm of one party. Of the same corporations that endorse the Democrats endorse the Republicans. We have a problem with oligarchy here. No one is speaking about Bernie Sanders speaking about student loan, which has the chain around everybody neck. People cannot advance when they can't buy a house, can't buy a car, can't leave the grandmother's basement and go out here on their own. So the Democrats, they assume we are going to vote for them, but we are not. And I didn't like how Clinton talked about Obama, her and her husband, the racist talk that they did during the time that Obama was running. So no. And it is not going to be about race. It's going to be about the middle. We don't have a middle class.
Okay. Now you're going. Excuse me, Miss Marcia.
And they are not speaking on PPP.
Hold on, Miss Marcia. Okay, now you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders, and in the primary, if there is a primary. What if he doesn't win, and November it's Hillary Clinton and a Republican? What will you do then? Not vote?
Well, you know what? I don't think it's going to happen. I think that Bernie Sanders is going to be the Democratic
Okay,
person.
very good.
Really,
Well, thank you.
We all over the internet. We are going to bring out Bernie Sanders.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, politics is always a hot topic.
Hot topic.
It's always a hot
Sizzling.
topic.
I'd rather have Bernie Sanders than any of the 12 Republicans that are
right.
running. So let me.
It looks like it's going to be almost 19. Darnell, why don't you bring up the end of this discussion with
For
what
me,
you were going
he made a valid point about the gubernatorial race. If you look over the past two elections in Michigan, Republican Governor Rick Snyder was elected, raised Public Act 436 against the will of the people, was reelected after that. So I think it's an important race. I think we need to stand up and pay attention to what's going on. I say this every time I'm here. We have to actually hold the people that we elect accountable. We know that the billionaires are out there at the ALEC conventions and whatnot buying votes. The last one I just saw was the legislation to stop the people being able to sue for mesothelioma cancer, which is a big thing. And they own the industry. We work in the industry. We get sick. Now they don't want you to sue for working in their industry or in their plant. So we really...
that's not like multiple myeloma, is it?
No, it's the one from asbestos.
Okay.
So people really have to stand up and pay attention to what's going on.
Gotta come
no
out
matter
and vote.
Right, and no matter which party you vote for, be it independent, Republican, or Democrat, you have to know the issues. You have to know which party associates themselves with your lifestyle or what you're trying to accomplish. And then I think you got to go with that. But you got to hold the people that you elect accountable.
Absolutely. Let's move on. I mean, we could talk for days on that. Now, Detroit police seek a 4-day youth curfew for fireworks. What do you think? Why do you think they do it? I mean, I know what they say, but what do you think?
Well, I think what we have to point out too is that traditionally there has been the single day
Right.
curfew on fireworks night itself. So it's not without precedent. But 4 days, the 4-day period is extraordinary. Look, I mean, let's be clear about what this is about. There's not a curfew this weekend for the hoedown.
Absolutely.
There wasn't a curfew last week for the Grand Prix, and so we know what this is about. There's the feeling in downtown and midtown Detroit that we are having this great renaissance, and finally, 35 years after the Renaissance Tower is being built, we finally have a renaissance now, and people are feeling good about Detroit, and the Cass Corridor is not the Cass Corridor anymore; it's Midtown. These efforts are about making white people feel comfortable about being in Detroit, hopefully living in Detroit, partying in Detroit, and spending money in Detroit. And the general feeling is that when you have 16 and 17 and 18-year-old black teenagers downtown, that bad things will happen. That's what this curfew is about. I know
And
it was
it's
proposed
artificial.
by
It's artificial.
and I know it was proposed by a black police chief. But the reality is, I think it's a response to making white people feel good about being in Detroit. That's why you saw a few weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months ago, there was this concern about a stepped-up police presence in Corktown, when other parts of the city, basically seemingly go unmanned for days and days and days. I've said it before on this broadcast, and I've said it everywhere I've been. I have no problem with a very diverse city, racially, ethnically, socio-economically. But we've got to find a way for all of us to be comfortable. And the fear that I have, particularly somebody who studied the city's history very intently, is that if we're not careful, we're going to slip back into times and situations that this city had 40 and 50 and 60 years ago, and everybody's going to say, "Oh, how could it have happened? We have this great city. We're on the rebound. We've got the Grand Prix, and we've got somebody who's bought 80 buildings downtown." The reality is we've got to be very careful about how we treat everybody in this city.
Absolutely.
And that's my soapbox for today.
Okay. And you made it clear.
I don't necessarily agree with the curfew, but I will say this though. We had some historical problems during these particular festivals. I can think back to the women who got beat up, by the girls.
Joanne was in 1991 by 2 African-American teenage black girls.
Exactly. So
Almost 25 years ago.
right, and so and that's just one I can identify with. So I brought that up. I think what this is though is a Band-Aid on an open wound, right? We need more police. We need more protection for all citizens. So to have a curfew that we know will only affect a certain group of individuals is wrong. Because I have some excellent children, and they act accordingly, and so I don't worry about them when they go out. I know they won't be involved in whatever. So I don't necessarily agree with the curfew. But I would like to point out the fact that the curfew is just a Band-Aid on a bigger problem, and the bigger problem needs to be addressed, just as if you had some pain somewhere and you took some Tylenol. The problem is still there. Mm-hmm. All you did was mask the pain. And this is what the curfew is doing. It's masking the bigger issue, and that's the issue that needs to be addressed.
So, what I'd say to that is that unless there's a gift of prophecy somewhere where we can foresee this major event that's going to turn us into the next Baltimore, then what about the 17-year-old who struggled to get a car, who works downtown, can't leave the house after 6 o'clock, can't work the afternoon shift, which they usually work after school.
Right.
They don't even have access. What about that child? You know, and then we look back at the history when they even wrote about the article. They didn't go back 25 years. They wrote about a few parents who got ticketed, 50 parents who got ticketed for their youth not being when they wanted. They didn't cite violence. They cited 50. It wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have been ticketed if you
I
hadn't
don't
had
know.
that situation.
It seems like they want to corral people, put them in a spot so that they can't move. It's all artificial. It's trying to make this is the way we are, as opposed to changing the whole culture of the culture has a lot to do with it.
No, I agree with you, Brenda. Look, it is not without precedent, at least to this extent. As I pointed out, it has been a one-day, single-day curfew. The city does have a curfew around the Devil's Night period, but the reality is, and there's spotty times when it's enforced more than others. I think the difference between a 3 or 4 day curfew for Angels Night and the upcoming fireworks, is this. We're talking about, and really this is only going to be enforced in the riverfront area. I don't care what to tell you. I mean, they're concerned about people coming down to the riverfront and having a good time at the fireworks without being, accosted by somebody. That's the fear. And so, again, if we were doing it for all the big ticket items downtown, I wouldn't have any problem with it. Nobody's talked about crime more than I have in the city. I mean, we talked about it last week. But this one is very clear. We know exactly where it's going. We got the whole. And look, I lived downtown proper for 11 years. I've seen many hoedowns in downtown Detroit, and some of the stuff that happens,
and all of this.
some of the stuff that happens on opening day for the Tigers and the hoedown, and I just see cops just watching people. Okay, son, your car is right there.
Let's keep it moving.
Use the bathroom next time. Don't urinate outside.
Line. Tom, good morning, Tom.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I said this earlier when I was talking to Reverend Holly in terms of the curfew. I don't have a problem with the curfew, but if you're going to have the curfew, doggone it, don't pick certain events to enforce it. I mean, it should be enforced 24/7, 365. And the one gentleman said, well, what we need is more police. But the fact of the matter is, we got what we got. Okay, and we've got to work with that. And I think what they want to do is you always want to err on the side of caution. I mean, nobody wants to see any unnecessary drama. Rather not unnecessary, but you don't want to have drama down there. You want people to come down there, enjoy the fireworks, enjoy River Day. Because last year, my wife and I, we took our grandsons down. We went down to one of the days on the river days. And they shut it down because you've got some idiots, some thugs, okay, and I said it, me, Tom Wilson, called them thugs, that were in there, got to fighting, and according to what I heard, some of these security people that were, holding people back, said they got down and got to shooting, and they closed the River Day down for that. And I remember one firework, okay, we were on the way out, okay, from downtown, and I saw this pack of wolves, about 10 or 15 guys, rushed this one kid, knocked him down, took his shoes off, and whatever else they could get. And I got so angry. If I could have gotten my hands on one of them boys, I would have hurt them. And on the way back, we're on the bus, mind you. We're on the bus, and, the bus is packed, and you've got some of these young black kids in there, and they take beer and they poured it on this one white man's head. The man said nothing to them for them to do that. He just sat there, and just.
But Tom, are we going to continue to allow the inmates to take over the asylum? I am so tired of this.
Yeah.
Wait. All my life and a lot of our lives, we have suffered for a few.
And the good suffer with the bad, but go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, we have suffered for a few because
That's
so-and-so did that, I can't do this. These few people tend to take away certain liberties.
Screw it up for everybody.
One of the things that's
and that should not be tolerated. Then from what I could understand, they said, well, if you're out here in the neighborhoods, okay, and if you're out on the street after 6 o'clock, they're not going to mess with the kids, okay?
They're not.
But downtown, if a child, meaning someone under 18, comes down there by him or herself, unaccompanied by a parent or guardian, and you get pulled aside, well, guess what? You're going to be handcuffed. You're going to be hauled down and put into a bullpen or whatever they got down there to hold them. and then your parents are going to be notified. They're going to write a ticket, and I think the ticket was last year was like $50. And you know what? If a child of mine did that, guess what? They got to deal with me when they come home, and they don't want to have that encounter. So, folks, you know, if some of these folks out here who are listening,
Well,
you know,
thanks.
well,
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks for taking the call,
Thanks a
Bruce.
lot for your opinion about this.
Sure.
Let's kind of get this sum it up. What do we? You all have some more comments on that?
Final comment on this. The peculiar thing again about this weekend is
Thank you, Tom.
Absolutely, Tom. Great call. We've had previous mayors enter into very temporary inter police agreements, inter law enforcement agreements with other agencies. The Wayne County Sheriff. I saw a couple years ago when the city said it was too broke to even have the fireworks. I mean, there were law enforcement people from all over the region that volunteered, or at least had some type of agreement where they came in to help police the area. I could even go for that. I just think it's peculiar that some things get this
More
type of
cops.
attention than others, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I do too. But
Well, you actually said it. You summed it up. Why should the good suffer with the bad? Even though Tom said that's part of what happens. Unfortunately, you know, we got isolated events that are dictating the fun that families are going to have at this event.
Right.
Well, that's why you have police. When an isolated event happens, you
Thank
hope
you.
that you can
Thank you.
take action. That's why you have
that is my point. That,
Which was my original point. You need more cops. We used to have the auxiliary police, Wayne County Sheriff. You know, everybody would come in and help. Even back in the days when it was just the regular festivals, they always, you know, had more police. You need more police.
well, I haven't been down to fireworks in quite a while. I remember, you know, going down. I never took my kids down unless we were at a private something or other, because I just don't like all those crowds. Because once somebody starts running, here we go, here we go. I just hit the dirt or something. But as I said, I have suffered. I'm tired of people suffering for a few, and that's what's happening. And this is all so artificial. And if they could do it for this event, there are a lot of events that are going to be downtown. They're not going to do it. And your point about the person who works, the young man who works, may work at the yacht club downtown. I remember, in fact, my boyfriend in high school worked at the yacht club, and they were coming. They had to cross that bridge, and the police just came down on them. What are you all doing out here? They had to undo their pockets.
I think there are some caveats that have been made, special caveats if you're working, if you have a note from a parent. But again, I mean, to me, it's selective enforcement, because we know very well that the same attention will not be paid on Mack and Bewick, on 7 Mile and Greenfield, and on, I don't know, 7 Mile and Lappin. I know, someplace else outside the downtown and midtown. We know that.
Absolutely. I want to skip the next topic on insurance, because that's going to take a while, because I see our time. It goes by so fast. I want to go to the legislation about monitoring homeschooling considered. What do you think about that?
Definitely needed. I mean, I don't know how you can have, how a family, you know, it is legislated that you know, children in Michigan have to have some degree of compulsory education. So I don't know why the regulation never went along with it, except to say, and I've said in the past, I mean, a lot of times these Band-Aid, feel-good, sort of headline-grabbing pieces of legislation comes through Lansing, and it gets put out there, and they don't think about, you know, contingency plans and unintended consequences. They just think about getting elected for the next cycle, running the next cycle, moving to the next office. And I think this is probably something that fell through the cracks, because it was just too much, you know, everybody's, well, I don't want to go to public
attention
schools.
was on this case with the lady putting
Sure.
her kids in the freezer.
We wouldn't even having this conversation.
So
if we didn't.
do you all have any comments on that?
You know, it's the proverbial Band-Aid, right? Now, I believe there should be some oversight as to homeschooling. If you have your kids at home, we saying everybody else got to go to school, attendance control, you know, physicians, you know, that's fine. We do need that oversight. But it's a Band-Aid to a bigger issue. This woman didn't kill her kids because she was homeschooling.
Right,
She
absolutely.
killed them because there was a lack of father in the household. It's so many things. So it's not the homeschooling, although homeschooling probably do need some oversight. Again, it's a Band-Aid on a bigger issue.
You know, the challenge with measuring performance. One of the things they talked about was the additional compliance, the additional costs associated with having to report to the state. I live in an industry that's so much compliance in everything that we do. You know, in order to be in my job, I have compliance. There are people who come and audit us. You know, they don't come to audit us for free. We pay for the audit. So yeah. If I choose to homeschool my children, I want their test scores reported. I want to know that they're on track
want
to
to
get
be
into the best
accountable.
schools.
You
I
wanna
want to
be-
be accountable, and I think that's if that's the good that comes out of this, so be it.
But the hypocrisy will come. Some of the very same people that will vote for this legislation are the very same people that have voted to downsize government, take jobs away, and some of those jobs are administrative, regulatory jobs. I mean, we know now one of the reasons why a drugstore, a gas station can sell almost anything it wants without fear of reprisal. A reprisal is that there aren't enough state workers or city workers to go out and inspect these places. And so, yeah, I don't know where the workforce is going to come from to actually do the paperwork.
You know,
Ellis.
it's
I mean,
funny you mentioned that. Excuse me, Ken, but this was about 8 years ago. I used to write for the Southfield Eccentric. I had a column, and I did one on drug use paraphernalia. How in certain parts past a certain mile road, you could not find drug paraphernalia in a gas station. But you go to the gas stations in the city or party stores that cater mainly to African Americans, you see everything from a pipe to the things that do blunts and all of that. So much drug use paraphernalia. And there actually is a law on the state books or national books where you're not supposed to do that, and it is not enforced. And we allow this kind of stuff in our community, and like you say, regulations, they don't have it. And as far as compliance is concerned, everybody, you know, we have these casinos. They get audited. They have to be in compliance. Your business has to be in compliance. I feel I have to be in compliance when I file my taxes. Now,
compliance.
right. And as far as homeschool and me having been an educator, I couldn't do it with my kids because I know nothing about math. And I just would be afraid that my children would be losing something. But I have taught students who have been homeschooled.
Right.
And a lot of them, the ones I've had, have done very well. But recently, and the reason why I brought this up was I saw a woman at somewhere, and it was during the day, and she had her daughter with her, and I asked her daughter, I said, what school do you go to? The girl was about 13. Oh, I'm homeschooled. But the mother could barely take care of herself, and I'm saying, I felt so bad because I just don't think it's regulated. I think it should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we if not for the tragic case in the King homes with the children in the freezer, we might not be having this discussion. I guess again, always go back to we Band-Aid is the best way to put it, because that's what they do in the legislature. Oh, there's headlines in the news. How can we solve it really quickly? And not the wraparound services, paying for the wraparound services that may have helped that family.
Right,
But
right.
what can we do really quick? How can I grab a headline real fast? What is something that we can make happen before the end of May so we can go up on Mackinac? I mean, it's the type of conversation that I've worked over there. That's how they think in Lansing.
And you know what? This conversation has probably come up umpteen hundred times about regulating homeschool, because who's to say, you know, you're teaching the kids, you know, well. So I'm sure that conversation has been had, but now to bring it up and base it solely on the fact that this young woman killed two of her kids, and because they were homeschooled, now we want to, you know, follow regulation.
Create the regulation, right? Because
Exactly.
it wasn't when it didn't exist.
Exactly.
Ellis, are you a parent?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all three of you are parents. Have you ever tried to teach your child something, and your child sometimes just maybe you lose your objectivity as you try to teach them, and it becomes difficult? Has it happen to any of you?
You know, I think that everybody has a right to homeschool their children. I know a couple families that do it, and I think they do a good job. I'm answering your question. I don't have the patience to do it. I don't have the patience. Here's the answer to your question. I don't have the patience to help Jackson build the Lego set. Thank God they have classes where he can. These Legos are difficult now. No, I don't. And those who can, that's great. I just can't do it.
Ellis?
My background is education. I studied to be my dream job was to be a college coach. Fortunately for me, I got that job right out of college. I actually got the job while still a senior in college. They asked me to be the women's coach, and then I got a job at Florida A&M University as their first women's coach. So I got my dream job right out. I have all the patience to teach driver's ed, to teach the math, and to teach the sciences. So I have that in me. And yes, I've approached my children, but I've always talked to my children like they were human. Some parents talk to their children like they're something else. So I do think that there's a huge myth. Not everybody has the ability to do that. Right. I just happen to be one of those parents who had the ability, but I've also had smart kids. Now, you know, I feel bad for the parent who doesn't get the smart kid, but I've had smart kid, Presidential Scholar, University of Michigan, my first daughter, Hope Scholar to University of Georgia, my second son, and the other two right now have, 3.5 or all A's. So I'm very fortunate that way, but I also volunteer coach at Birmingham schools, and there are kids who aren't as smart. And they need to be in an environment where learning is encouraged, not just by a parent, but by other students.
Right, but that intelligence piece is great. But sometimes when parents are showing kids, their approach to it is not good. The kid may be a bright kid,
correct,
but their approach.
You know what? Everybody says that inspiration is an inside job. It isn't. Inspiration comes from without. Those who follow Jesus, they follow his leadership. Take Jesus away, most Christians can't be Christians because they don't have the ability to do that.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Darnell, quickly.
No, I do. I have 3 kids, and my kids, Brenda does very well. My daughter's in college. My youngest son, straight A student, on roll every year. But me, I was the motor skill guy. I taught the swimming. I taught the tying the shoe. I taught to ride the bicycle. I let my wife do all the other stuff.
Right.
Oh, right. But
yeah, fortunate enough to have, like Mr. Ellis said, fortunate enough to have bright kids. And so, but some other folks have a challenge. I don't think personally I could do homeschooling. I just couldn't do it.
And sometimes people forget, and teachers forget this. Teachers think that all students should learn the way they learned. Everybody learns differently. And I'm sure with your kids, each one of them learned a little differently. Do we have a quick call on this? Good morning, Ishmael.
Good morning to y'all.
Good morning, my brother.
Well, this is Ishmael Terry. As you know, we work with youth in the school districts, and yes, students learn different ways and have different attitudes towards education. But homeschooling is only regulated by the state superintendent, Mike Flanagan, and that's where the regulation should be coming from, not from the legislators from the House nor the Senate, but from Mike Flanagan's office at the state level. That is the way that we can actually maintain a different educational style that will be able to transfer from home to the facilities that we teach our students at in our educational institutions.
But even with that paradigm, Ishmael, I mean, we have a very different process than we had 20 years ago. State superintendent really is a gubernatorial appointee now. I mean, let's be candid. I mean, which was very different.
Well, they've allowed Mike Flanagan to stay.
Yeah, it's a political appointment. It's still a political process.
Right.
Like that. I understand what you're saying. I don't think that gets us to where I think we all want to be, though. I think I believe this is a Band-Aid approach to a larger problem.
Right.
Now, Ishmael,
I agree with you in some fashion or form with that.
Ishmael, I believe this new legislation would have parents who wish to homeschool now have to register. Is there any type of regulations right now? Do we know who's being homeschooled right now?
We do have a regulation that students and parents must sign their students on through the MDE, but that is not the overseed, if you want to say. The Mike Flanagan and the State Board of Education and them are not actually putting them on the computer system yet to be able to say these are the students that are being homeschooled. So that's the drawback, and they're trying to rectify that as we speak.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep on following this, and thanks a lot. And I'll see you on the show in a few weeks. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
to talk about your program on Brenda Perryman
Yes,
Show. Thank you. Now this next
Thank
one.
you.
Oh, thank you. This next topic, and it was more in the news the earlier part of the week, is about Floyd Dent. And the Inkster citizens having something tacked onto their taxes where they have to pay his settlement. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's the unfortunate cost of not the government, in this case, or in that agency, not doing the necessary things it should do, and sensitivity training and everything that goes along with community policing to make that investment on the front end. And now residents are paying on the back end through a settlement. Thank God it's a settlement. He might have gotten $4 million in a Wayne County Circuit Court, so they may be getting off easy.
No, actually, I believe they're actually getting off kind of worse. But I understand what you're saying. But I believe that the way the rule is set up, anything over $2 million, the city will pay for, or insurance will pay for. But anything under $2 million, the citizens have to kick in. But the important point I want to make is, here's the perfect opportunity for that community to hold the people in that community accountable. The elected officials, the police chief, everybody. If I got to pay for your mistakes, then you won't be here next term. And so this is the perfect opportunity for this community to come together and make something positive happen out of a negative.
Okay, we have a quick call. Theo, yes? Good morning.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was holding on the line to comment on the last issue because I do know people who do homeschooling. One young lady through homeschooling works for Quicken Loans. She flies an airplane. Another young man is an author. But the point is, they do have networks, those who do homeschooling. And as the gentleman who called in before said, the state has testing, and they even have them go down to Cobo Hall for that. All parents don't teach their own children. Yeah. They have networks where they come together to find out who has the best skills, say in math, as you were mentioning.
Very good point. You're right.
Your child. It's not as bad as some people mention.
Well, yeah, I understand that, and I did mention, because we're kind of off this subject, but I did mention that I taught students who came to the school mainly for the arts or something like that, but they were homeschooled and they did well on their testing.
Right.
It's just there are a lot of people. There are people out here who are unregulated, who just keep their kids out of school and put it under the banner of homeschooling. I thank you. I thank you so much for talking. I'm glad I talked to you twice today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Back to the Inkster situation. Protocol is so important. And every time something happens, and here's what the city of Inkster, I live in Birmingham. If something bad happens in Birmingham, I want my city to be responsible. If that means I have to chip in, then I have to chip in, because I chose to live in a city of diversity.
Right.
And because I chose to live in a city of diversity, I don't want to see anything happen on my watch while I'm living there that's bad. So if it means that I have to hold the officials and the police and everybody accountable, then it's my job to do that. It's my job to pick up the phone and call and say, I don't want people who of color coming through Birmingham feeling like they can't drive downtown Birmingham. They can't go to the movies in Birmingham. They can't eat in the restaurants in Birmingham. I want them to feel like they can. And I want to be proud to say, how you doing, when I walk past someone.
Absolutely.
And that's the investment that you're making.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, I think more people obviously need to
and
make that
hold
investment.
their feet to the fire.
Oh yeah, because $150 increase in your property taxes you're going to feel that. So the next time a settlement happens, you don't look the other way. Right. And it's kind of good that it was under $2 million. Because otherwise, it would just get wrecked under the table. It was just another event, and no one would be talking about it. But we're still talking about it because it's a relative event. It happened to someone. It shouldn't have happened. It was wrong. It should not have occurred. And because it occurred, greater sensitivity to Inkster, to other Westland and other areas that also need to have a greater sensitivity to. You just can't do this to people.
And
Right.
Ellis, more importantly, because that community has to now pay out of their pocket, there should never be another police brutality incident in Inkster City.
Right.
Because now I'm going to hold this police department accountable if I got to pay for your mistakes. It
Absolutely.
should never happen in Inkster again.
Absolutely.
Never.
I want to go quickly to the next one. Tom Hanks has a son. His name is Chet, and he's a rapper. And I've seen him on television a couple of times this week, and he uses the N-word in his raps. But he said he could do that because it's a term of endearment in a way to other rappers or his friends and so forth. He has, I say he's like the last black white boy. And
There are a couple of them.
yeah, I know.
There are a couple of them.
Yes. But what do you think of this? I mean, I want to kind of go through it quickly because this is a constant discussion about this N-word. Should people say we buried the N-word? I've seen the N-word buried and resurrected so many times. I don't know what to do.
And please.
I know.
Look, I battle with people on this. I don't know how you can require, request, demand somebody not use the word when you use it yourself. I think that I don't use the word. It does. I can't say that it hasn't slipped out of my mouth in 20 years. It has. I feel horrible every time I do it. But my intent is not to use the word. And so because I don't use the word, I don't want anybody else to use it. Tom Hanks' son or Pookie down the street. I just don't know how we can have it both ways. I don't know how you legislate that anyway. But I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too on this.
Anyone else, Ellis?
Let me just say this here. I remember watching Oprah interview Jay-Z about this. And, in my, the world I live in, my vocabulary is extensive enough that I can find a way to put you down.
Yeah.
However, some people have taken these words. I agree. I don't think that he has the right to use the word. I think that if most people say, let's not do that, just like you would if it was a Jewish community, of words that we just don't do. I think people should respect the fact that it's never going to be a term of endearment because the pain that it brings when it's said hasn't gone away.
Absolutely.
And even though people say, well, my buddy and I just use it with each other. Well, you and your buddy might want to work on some more words to accomplish the same goal.
Pick up a dictionary.
Right.
Shame on him. Shame on him. More importantly, shame on him because one of the things he said was, I need this word to be successful in rap. Okay, well, Eminem is very successful in rap, and he doesn't use the word. Now, he may use it amongst his friends, but I've never heard him say it on his record. And I don't listen to his records intently, but I don't believe he said it on his records. Shame on Tom Hanks' son.
But Chet, absolutely. So Chet says he needs to use the word to be successful. Why is that? That's because there are countless numbers of African Americans who use it in their rap. And so, again, I don't know how you can say I can use it, but you can't use it. I think it's a horrible word for all the reasons we've just already described. And I don't know. I just see the hypocrisy in that, and I just think it's a problem.
Right. Well, let's move on to the next one. And this story I found somewhat upsetting. There was a young woman who went to Queens, New York, to have butt implants, and the doctor. She went into Brownstone. The doctor was doing the injections, and the girl became short of breath. She was with her mom, and she ended up dying. I want to know. Do men really care about the girls having these gigantic butts?
It's helpful. No,
What?
it can be a very good thing. Everybody has their taste. I mean, I think that's great. Now, somebody going to doing a back alley or basement procedure is ridiculous.
Well,
so I think
people
it's
talk about
horrible
Kim Kardashian's behind. Her sister got butt implants, Chloe or whatever her name is. And what is that? All this stuff about? Any comments, guys? Don't be afraid.
Right? No, listen. Just on the surface, right? Being a young man out in the world, we know brothers typically love dunks, right? And we know that white men usually love big breasts. It's just one of those things. But you are created a certain way. You should embrace it and enjoy it and love who you are. To go to those extremes of plastic surgery to the point where you're endangering your life is absolutely ludicrous. And just to bring a point, if you look at Little Kim, for example, right?
Cautionary tale.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely horrible.
Beautiful before that. I never got.
Exactly.
I never got why all that was necessary.
Sisters, please, you are beautiful the way you are. Work on your mind.
Oh, good point.
Work
Not
on
your behind. We on a roll today.
That's a new PSA. Work on your mind, not your behind.
Oh, good one. Ellis, you got a quick comment?
Yeah. I just want to say that bigger is not better. and the art that God created when He created females. I mean, I love looking at women. We got the whole rainbow of assortment out there. And if all I'm doing is staring at your butt, I'm never going to see your eyes. So I won't go back to the commercial. What was it again? The TSA?
Work on your mind.
Not your behind.
I love it. I love it. I started not to put this next topic on because it's been talked to death about Caitlyn Jenner. But when I read that Dennis Rodman said he would date Caitlyn Jenner, who was Bruce Jenner, I just said, I'm tired of him. I threw him out the door. Now, Snoop Dogg has, and people, I'm not going to say anything to, people talk about this in private, about Bruce Jenner's transition and whatever. But Snoop Dogg said that Caitlyn Jenner is a science project, Bruce Jenner. Now, he says he wasn't himself. He lived all these years being an athlete. Can you give me, I'll give a quick response because I see time is about out again, on what you thought? I
think that Bruce, or Caitlyn now, has the right to do what he or she wants to do. I'm fine with the transgender piece. That's not my issue. I just, this Kardashian stuff, to be honest with you, my initial response to this was publicity stunt, just like the whole Kardashian family is. I mean, is this a new reality show? How much did he get paid by Vanity Fair? What's the next? I mean, I have no problem with the coming out, if you will. It just always seems like there's something motivating this family that has to do with money and not
like a spectacle.
Power.
Quickly, either one.
Yeah, real quick. Social media now is just the Inquirer magazine on steroid. It's sensationalism, and that's what we look for now. I give two, whatever about Bruce, Caitlyn, or whoever. It doesn't, affect my daily life. But more importantly, there's some things that I would like to talk about. Just like Snoop said, Akon providing electricity to 600 million people.
Right.
That's way more
important
than Bruce, Caitlyn, or whatever. So.
Okay, yeah. Ellis, any comment?
No comment.
Okay.
Which was the best one of all.
I started to do that.
I know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for Table Talk. Next week's Table Talk will be probably a rerun of this show because I have an engagement I have to go to, but we're going to have a great Brenda Pyramid show. I'm talking with the writers of Float On and Detroit Emeralds and everything. Black Music Month in effect. Right. And when are you about your book? When's your book?
I have a book signing on June the 20th at Eric's I've Been Framed. The book Solo on Air will be released that day, June 20th. It's a Saturday.
I'll see you on the 19th.
All right.
So, gentlemen, it goes by so fast because you all are so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, Brenda.
Have a great weekend, everybody.